Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast. You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And we're back. It's always great to have Harvard Law Professor Emeritus Avram Mordechai Dershowitz with us. So welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. I'm in a real conflict apparently these days with some members of the Orthodox community because I said something critical about the Rambam.
And what did you say? I missed that. What did you say?
What I said was the Rambam was brilliant and one of the most innovative and important Jewish intellectuals, but he wasn't always right. And that his effort to try to discourage Talmudic discourse by writing the Mishnah Torah didn't understand well the nature of Jews, particularly Ashkenazi Jews, who love conflict and dialogue, and we're not particularly interested in definitive answers. We're interested in the process going forward. So I was somewhat critical of the Mishnah Torah and also critical of his 13 principles, as many Orthodox rabbis have been. And so, the Rambam's a very controversial, brilliant man. But boy, when I said anything critical of him, you should hear the responses. They want me to go back to yeshiva. I'm happy. The Rambam. I actually participated in a Harvard class on the Rambam. I'm not an expert on him, but I believe in dialogue and discussion. So I'm happy to continue my discussion and to learn more about Rambam. But remember, Rambam is not Hashem. He's a human being. And human beings not only are fallible, but must be subject to dialogue over the ages. And so...
Well, his books, listen, they burnt his books. Remember, they burnt his books. And
I know, I don't burn his books. I
hope they don't burn your books.
They burned my books. So people are perfectly able to be critical of Rashi. People argue Rashi was, too formalistic. I have my favorite Jewish commentators over time, and I have some who are not. I wrote a book about it called The Genesis of Justice, where I divided Jewish commentators into defense attorneys, those who justify everything that every halachic authority has ever said, and those that participate in the dialogue over the generations, which is what has made Judaism so strong. Unlike the Catholic Church, we don't have a pope, and there's no definitive response. Remember, in the Talmud, many resolutions are teku. We're not sure. And the Talmud is the only religious book in early history that preserved dissenting opinions. While the Catholics were burning dissenters and the Muslims were burning dissenters, the Talmud was honoring dissenters by saying, let's include the minority dissenting opinion. Maybe someday there'll be the majority. And so I'm very much in favor of continuing dialogue, including about the Rambam. So
I'm not critical, and the question being critical or having a different opinion, there's a difference between that. But by the way, you will love this. The Tziv of Elazon had, remember the Tower of Babel that we read about in the Bible, in the Torah? He said it really was a watchtower because they wanted one language, they wanted one thought, and God likes diversity. That's why he had it. It was there to enforce that the only one opinion.
No, in fact, in my book, The Genesis of Justice, I cite that as one of the great midrash interpretations, midrashic interpretations. The Torah has 100 faces, and the Rambam has 100 faces, and people are entitled to say, we love what the Rambam did. His philosophy was extraordinary. His Moreh Nevuchim, A Guide to the Perplexed,
he was brilliant.
Brilliant book. But I'm critical somewhat of trying to lay down 13 invincible principles. And if you disagree with even one of them, you are like a piece of grass in the wind, and you shouldn't be accepted. I don't believe that the Jewish religion should have a cherem or an exclusion or a cancel culture for people who have disagreement. And I'm in the company of many great rabbis who had grave questions about some of the Rambam's efforts and interpretations. And of course, there's great controversy over the Rambam's life itself. And so I think we should continue. I went to the class of Rabbi Isidore Twersky at Harvard University when he gave a class on the Rambam, and we ended up having a dialogue in the front of the class about the 13 principles. And you
believe the Messiah is going to come, right?
Well, I hope.
Of course he's going to come.
Who was the great rabbi who said, if you're tending your field and somebody tells you the Mashiach is here, keep tending the field. There'll be time. So I'm a process person. I want to continue the dialogue. Judaism is too good, too important, and too intellectual to be able to be resolvable by one book.
There's no one opinion. We have Shivan Panim Torah. We have 7 different facets of looking at it. And the God likes diversity, and there are many other Torah thoughts like that. But speaking of
Abraham, he didn't criticize God. I'm saying he didn't criticize the Rambam. He criticized God. He said, Chalila lecha, shofet kol haaretz, lo naseh mishpat, Chalila lecha. If Abraham can say Chalila to God, I can raise questions about some of the Rambam's efforts.
Well, as long as there were other rabbis over the course of time that, like I said, he was controversial when it came out, but today it's more mainstream, it's more accepted. In fact, Chabad is a big supporter. They love Rambam, am I right?
And I got a lot of letters from my Chabad friends saying, come learn with us, do the Rambam with us. Maybe you'll change your mind. Maybe I will. I'm happy. I have an open mind.
All right, which is good. But the rest of us don't have such an open mind. Look at what's happening in America today. We lost that diversity. And look what's happening now. Let's first start with Jeffrey Epstein. What's going on? They're looking to besmirch the president.
Before we get to that, I've said that at Harvard today, you couldn't have the Lincoln Douglas debates. Half the students would say, we don't want to listen to Douglas. Half would say, we don't listen to Rambam. But everybody wants to listen to Jeffrey Epstein. Everybody assumes now everything he says is the truth. So that when Jeffrey Epstein writes a letter saying, this woman, Virginia Giuffre, the same woman who falsely accused me, spent days, a whole day with Donald Trump, people believe that, even though the woman herself, Virginia Giuffre, said she never met Donald Trump. So take with a grain of salt everything you read in the Epstein emails, particularly if they're stated by Epstein himself. He was a manipulator. He was a transactional guy. He always asked himself, what can I get from this? He may have been telling the truth about some things. He said, I was insane. He said that Donald Trump is insane, and Dershowitz is close to that. He hated me, Jeffrey Epstein, because he thought I didn't get him a good deal, the sweetheart deal that everybody complains about as being too good.
Which sweetheart deal didn't you get for him? What's he referring to?
Well, he said, I remember the deal that I helped get along with a lot of other lawyers, Jay Lefkowitz and many others. People say that's a sweetheart deal. He only served 18 months. Epstein fired me and wouldn't pay me my legal fee, because he said, 18 months, I don't want to go to jail for a single day, and I don't want to have to register as a sex offender. So he was very upset with me. And I've said that now for years, but these emails prove that, because he badmouths me at every turn. And to be badmouthed by Jeffrey Epstein, I guess, is high praise.
But what's going on? The Democrats are using it as a tool because they're very selective in what they released, which was meant to make Donald Trump look bad. I'm not even sure why it makes him look so bad. They don't really say anything about him that I think is of substance.
Not only was it selectively released, but for example, this thing about spending a day with one of the alleged victims, they redacted the name because they knew that by putting in the name of Virginia Giuffre, there were real questions. Virginia Giuffre admitted that she may have misidentified me, and obviously I was falsely accused by her. That's my opinion, and that's an opinion many others share, and she dropped all of her cases. So the Democrats purposely redacted her name, and the White House figured out who it was and made it public, but they didn't want the public to know that the person who was allegedly in the house was Virginia Giuffre, because then you look her up, and she says, I think even under oath, that she never met Jeffrey Epstein, that she never met Donald Trump. She saw him once, but she never met him.
Crazy stuff, right? That's what's going on.
I want everything out because I want this behind us. I want every piece of paper. And the day I was falsely accused, I waived my right of privacy, even my right of lawyer-client confidentiality. I said, put everything out there, because I know that if everything's out there, it'll prove unequivocally I never met this woman. I never had sex with anybody but my wife since the day I met Jeffrey Epstein.
What's going on with Schlossberg? He'd like to run for Jerry Nadler's congressional seat. What's with you and him?
The worst thing about New York is Schlossberg may be the best of all these horrible candidates that are running for the seat to replace this horrible Congressman Nadler. And Schlossberg is a total incompetent. He is either mentally ill or a liar. He too accused me of killing my wife. Then he met
I was going to say, I didn't understand what he was saying with you. What was that all about?
He's a nutcase. He's furious at me because I got into an argument with his mother. I had a good relationship with his mother. And one day I was seated next to her at a dinner party on the Vineyard after I defended Donald Trump. And she said to me, Alan, if I knew you had been invited to this dinner party, I wouldn't have come. I said, why? She said, because you defended Donald Trump. I said, but I also defended Ted Kennedy, your uncle. Didn't you think I should defend Ted Kennedy? Most of the people I've defended over time have been Democrats. I defended, various governors and various senators, all Democrats. The only Republican I've ever defended has been Donald Trump. And she just couldn't understand how anybody could defend Donald Trump. So I got mad at her. She got mad at me. And Schlossberg took it out on me and decided to attack me. But everybody on Martha's Vineyard, where he lives for the summer, regards him as a nutcase. That wasn't.
Didn't he say that he had a recipe with Jewish blood was part of the recipe?
Yeah, I don't know about. He says crazy things. Now I don't know whether he says it in order just to get people to listen to his podcast or whether he really means it. But neither is a good qualification for office. If you're prepared to lie and make false accusations just to get clicks, you shouldn't be in Congress. And if you're a nutcase, you shouldn't be in Congress, although there are more than one nutcases in Congress today. But I don't think that he'll win. But it's such a bad field running. And this is the Upper West Side and the Upper East Side where I live in New York.
And it also covers parts of Brooklyn, including Hasidic Borough Park.
Unbelievable that Jews would, they voted for Mamdani, they'll vote for anybody. So, among the dumbest people in the city of New York, also among the smartest, but among the dumbest people in the city of New York are self-hating Jews. People who can look themselves in the mirror and say, yeah, I know that Mamdani hates Israel. I know he's anti-Zionist. I know he doesn't believe Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state. I know he belongs to a party that doesn't believe Israel has the right to exist, period. But what the heck, I'll vote for him because he'll make buses free. That's what got Hitler elected in 1932. People didn't vote for him in 1932. I don't want to make any comparisons, obviously, between Mamdani and Hitler. But people didn't vote for Hitler in 32 because he was an anti-Semite. They voted for him in spite of his anti-Semitism in order to get
the buses ran on time in Germany.
Huh?
The buses ran on time under Hitler in Germany.
On time, and he had full employment. And for the first 2 years, he helped the economy. And really only then did he begin to start the Nuremberg laws. I just saw the film Nuremberg. Interesting film. It makes the mistake of making us think that the object of the first Nuremberg trial was the mass murder of Jews, the Holocaust. It wasn't. That was a peripheral issue. The issue at Nuremberg, I know I'm a scholar of the Nuremberg trials, the main focus of the Nuremberg trials was waging aggressive war. And that's what, but of course it included the killing of civilians. But it's an interesting movie. It's worth seeing.
Our guest is Harvard Law Professor Emeritus Alan Avi Dershowitz. What legally can Jews do in New York with Mamdani? Because he's going to probably restrict access funds to groups that have connections to Israel. I don't think there'll be an Israeli Day parade. He certainly wouldn't march into it. Is there any legal recourse that the citizens have in New York?
Yes, and the Anti-Defamation League has set up a kind of watch, Mamdani watch. Of course, J Street opposes it and says it's anti-Islamic, but anything J Street says is probably completely dead wrong. But we ought to put together a legal team, I'm happy to be on it, to challenge Mamdani if he tries to end the Israel Day Parade, if he tries to cut off funding to Jewish groups, if he does anything that reflects his horrible anti-Israel and, in my view, anti-Semitic bias. We have to fight back. We have to be ready to take him to court at every turn and make sure that he can't get away with anything. And I'm prepared to participate actively in that effort.
You have a group of lawyers that are going to be working with you on this effort?
I've just suggested it for the first time on this show, but if people want to volunteer to do that, they should, write to you and you'll get their information to me. But, I have so many things on my plate. I'm also defending Bibi Netanyahu. And if he were to come to New York, as he will in September, I will be at his side. And if Mamdani wants to have him arrested, he's going to have to go through me. And we're going to file countersuits against Mamdani because he has no power as the mayor of New York to arrest a person who comes as a diplomat to the United States to speak at the United Nations.
No, it's certainly a terrible thing. I think Councilwoman Ina Verniger wants him to come now on Inauguration Day.
I'll be with him. So I'll walk on his side. I'll be carrying my legal briefs and be ready to go to court, and we'll win. And we'll take counteractions against Mamdani or anybody else who tries to interfere with American foreign policy, which obviously not only recognizes Netanyahu, but the President of the United States has written to the President of Israel, urging the President of Israel to pardon Netanyahu. Netanyahu should be pardoned because I don't believe he committed any crimes. Now, I'm one of his lawyers, so I'm not unbiased about that. But what he's accused of are minor derelictions that half of the Israeli Knesset probably could be found guilty of.
By the way, before we're talking about Schlossberg running for Jerry Nadler's seat, what is your relationship with Jerry Nadler?
Zero. I don't like him at all. I've never liked him. He's a buffoon. He has been part of the switch of the Democratic Party away from Israel. He's like so many other Democrats. He wants to have it both ways. He wants to satisfy the most radical of his constituents, and I'm glad he's leaving.
Who do you like more, him or Chuck Schumer?
Well, I've known Chuck Schumer a lot longer. I remember him as a student at Harvard Law School. Chuck Schumer is pro-Israel in his heart, but he's not Shomer Yisrael.
He's Shomer Yishmael.
That's what he says he is. Shomer.
I say Shomer Yishmael.
Yeah, Shomer Yishmael. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'll vote for. Obviously, I'll support him if he is challenged in the primaries by AOC or anybody else. I'm supporting Elise Stefanik for governor. I think she would be a great governor. I don't think Hochul has been a good governor. And so I don't vote in New York, but I obviously support candidates in New York, and I contribute to campaigns in New York.
Now, Bruce Blakeman, there's talk about him challenging Elise Stefanik for that position. There may be a Republican primary. Your thoughts on that?
Won't win. Stefanik's going to win. She's terrific. She's brilliant. Despite the fact that she went to Harvard, she's really smart. And she spoke the other day at the Zionist conference, which I was at.
Oh, I saw it, the Zionist Organization of America dinner the other night.
So I thought she made a great speech. And I think, what she did to the president of Harvard saved Harvard. If Claudine Gay were the president of Harvard today, it would be sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into the abyss, and it would be getting fewer and fewer funds from the federal government. So she did a great job for Harvard by getting rid of the worst president in Harvard's history, who was totally incompetent, who was put into the job by Penny Pritzker. Again, a Jew who is willing to appoint somebody like Claudine Gay as president of Harvard. Penny Pritzker, has not distinguished herself, and I think should resign as well from the Harvard Corporation.
In the few moments we have remaining, you were at Harvard Law School. You're Harvard for so many years. Kids come back from these schools woke. What can we do? Because it's a big issue. You mentioned 30% of Jews in New York voted for Mamdani against our self-interest, but a lot of them are young people going to these woke colleges and come back with a woke ideology.
Well, let me give you a statistic that you probably will question. There are about 100 Harvard faculty members. They're supposed to be the best and the brightest. About 50 of them are Jewish. Not one single Harvard professor who's Jewish, not a single Jewish Harvard professor has spoken up for Israel. The only person who's spoken up for Israel is a non-Jewish professor. The Harvard Jewish professors, many of them support Israel quietly in their homes and their shuls, but they are testicularly challenged. They don't have the beitzim to stand up for Israel publicly because they know they'll be criticized. I have a professor I spoke to recently, and I said, why don't you speak up for Israel? He said, I don't want to be Dershowitz. I don't want to be treated the way you've been treated at Harvard by the students and by the faculty.
Your picture is still up there on the wall.
Pictures up on the wall, but I don't get invited back to speak to my students. And I was probably the most popular professor at Harvard when I was teaching there for 50 years, taught 10,000 students. But my support for Israel has made me persona non grata in many parts of Harvard. The only
Did Chabad invite you to come back there, or one group?
Oh, of course. In fact, I was invited back a few months ago by an Egyptian Muslim professor, pro-Palestinian, who wanted to debate me at the Kennedy School. We had a wonderful debate. Not a single member of the Harvard Law School faculty showed up to the debate because they didn't want to be seen in a debate. Oh my God, a debate about Israel and the Palestinians. But we had a good debate. And I was invited there once by the Chabad rabbi, but they had to move the speech off campus for fear of my safety.
Crazy. What can we do to change this? Because it's only getting worse. Now we're seeing on the right anti-Semitism growing.
Yeah, no, we have to just fight back. Never. I think I was with Rabbi Schneier last night, and he gave me a great quote. He said, a casual Jew will become a Jewish casualty. And we can't allow Jews to be casual at this moment of crisis. We have to fight back. I have an op-ed that I'm just writing in which I say, I am no longer going to defend organizations that support gay rights, black rights, other rights. I support the concepts, but I can't support Black Lives Matter. I can't support the NAACP, which has turned against Israel. I can't support environmental and gay groups that have turned against Israel. I can support what they stand for, but I'm sick and tired of I'm for you, but you're for my enemy. I'm not going to do that anymore in my own life. I'm 87 years old. I live, hopefully by principle. I don't do anything for convenience sake or to get friends or anything of that kind. I'm going to try to live out my last years of my life being principled and supporting Israel and doing everything I can to help the Jewish community.
But you must be upset that your friends with Martha Vineyards and elsewhere that you were so chummy with have turned their back on you and attacked you.
Well, I'm more upset that they've turned their back on my wife and my children and my grandchildren. I can fight back. But my wife has been victimized by this, and my children and grandchildren have been victimized by my support for Israel. And so it doesn't only apply to the kid in college. You know, it applies to anybody today who's perceived of as being pro-Israel. I can't go anywhere and speak about anything. If I want to make a speech about baseball, I'm protested because of my support for Israel. I can deal with protests as long as they're not violent.
Has your family moved more to the right because of the anti-Semitism?
No, and I haven't moved more to the right.
People say you're more leaning to the right. You're more comfortable at a ZOA dinner than a liberal Jewish dinner.
No, I'm more comfortable at a pro-Israel dinner than I am at an anti-Israel dinner. So I'll go to an ADL dinner. I won't go to a J Street dinner. But that's not because I'm right or left. I am the same. I haven't moved. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me, and I'm going to continue to be a libertarian, contrarian, egalitarian. That's who I am. That's who I've always been, and I'm not going to change. I'm too old to change. I see the world changing around me, but where I stand still, it looks like I moved to the right. I haven't. It's just that the world has moved to the extreme left, and I'm not moving there with them.
The perception out there, I hear from a lot of my listeners, is, oh, Alan has moved to the right. I'm just telling you what the public perception is.
Of course, but it's not true. So once you examine my views and compare them to what I wrote, say, in Chutzpah in 1990, or the case for Israel in 2000, my views are the same. I'm boringly consistent.
Your latest book is?
Well, I'm doing these pamphlets now, the 10 Israel lies, and then I have one called Palestinianism. I have one about Trump says to Harvard, go fund yourself. And my most recent one, which will be out in a week, is Jewish blood is no longer cheap. And it's an analysis of how Israel had to respond overwhelmingly to October 7th and did the right thing in Gaza in order to send a message to the world that we will not stand for attacks on Jews. We will fight back disproportionately.
I hope so. Final question. There's a movement, I said, on the right becoming more anti-Semitic, less that pro-Israel. Even Vice President J.D. Vance is not perceived to be as pro-Israel as Trump. Are you concerned for people like J.D. Vance and don't have it in their kishkas regarding Israel?
I'm worried, but I am very proud of my former student, Ted Cruz. Ted has stood up unequivocally for Israel. He stood up against these right-wingers. He has done what Bill Buckley did back 20 years ago, when he called out Pat Buchanan and accused him of essentially anti-Semitism. Ted has been our champion. So people who have attacked me for being friendly with Ted, think about that. We need Ted Cruz, and he's been a very, very strong supporter of Israel, even though he's conservative, and maybe because he's conservative. And so, right now, conservatives and Christian Zionists are more supportive of Israel than many Jews. And thank God for Christian Zionists. And that's so upset about these right-wingers who attack Christian Zionists as if they're un-American.
But by the way, the next generation of Christian evangelicals are not pro-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian.
I think it's a struggle. People like Mike Pompeo, who's, very religious supporter of Israel, Mike Huckabee.
But they're the older generation.
The older generation, but they're having an influence as well on the younger generation. So
I spoke to a pastor, professor, who said that the same problem Jews have, that kids go to woke colleges, come back brainwashed. Christian evangelicals are going to these woke colleges and coming back brainwashed against Israel. The same thing.
Well, not only that, but some of them are going to Christian colleges and Catholic colleges, which have woke elements within them too. So we're fighting an international, very widespread attack. The attack on Jews is greater today than it has ever been since the Holocaust. And we have to prioritize our involvement in accord with that reality. And I just wrote an article about that as well. I keep busy. I write at least an article a day, and I write, at least a book a year. That's all I can do. If I were, 27 years old, I'd be volunteering to fight for the IDF. I wear my IDF pin. I wear my, obviously, hostage pin, but I'm not 27. I'm 87. So my only weapon is the pen. It is literally because I don't use a computer. I just use my pen and my iPhone and my voice. That's the only weapons I have.
And your podcast, which will soon resume, I hope, right?
I hope so.
Anyway, thank you. May God give you the strength till 120 to keep going. You're a great fighter for the Jewish people.
A few months. Nobody should die on their birthday.
You should live to 120.
20 and a half.
And no. I live 120 in one day. That's my philosophy.
One day, yeah. Hey, your show is great. I always love being on it. It reminds me of my upbringing, and it also is a show that looks to the future. You combine the past and the future and the present. So keep doing it. May you go from strength to strength. Yasher koach.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to have you back again. Harvard Law Professor Alan Avi Mordechai.
Avraham Mordechai. That's
Avram Mordechai, right. Does anybody call you Avram Mordechai except for me?
A couple of my Hasidic clients call me Avram Mordechai.
Okay.
I called Avramala.
Avramala, Avala. Anyway, thank you. Look forward to having you back.
My pleasure. Thank you. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.